I'd like to share a few thoughts today about memories. Memories are something we all carry with us, like an album of things to keep. Somewhere I read that there are basically three kinds of memories. There are good ones, there are bad ones, and convenient ones. The ones we choose to recall while choosing to forget others that we don't really want to remember. Things we don't want to think about or have to do. In the midst of keeping track of the clutter of things to remember each day, we've all experienced, I'm sure, forgetting something. Like the three sisters who lived together in their home. The first sister, on her way upstairs, stopped halfway up and turned to her other sister, and said, "Was I going upstairs or was I going downstairs?" The answer was quick. "Remember, you're going upstairs to bed, and I'm going to bed too, after I make a peanut butter and jelly snack in the kitchen." Arriving in the kitchen, the second sister hesitated a moment, turned to the third sister who was sitting there, and asked, "Now, what did I come here for?" With a trace of irritation, sister number 3 replied, "You were on your way to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a bedtime snack. I'm sure glad that I'm not as forgetful as you two are." As she knocked on wood 3 times, hopped up from the table, scurried over to a closed door, and said, "Yes, who is it?" Do you ever forget where you put your keys, your glasses, your wallet, or a phone number that you wrote down someplace, or a shopping list of things to do? Did you ever lock yourself out of your car? Like I did in New York one time, left the engine running, and it was 11 o'clock at night when I locked the doors. The keys were still inside. Or did you ever forget to pay for something and almost walk out of the store without your product or without paying for it? Lucky you weren't arrested for shoplifting. Do you ever forget to pray during the day? As I said earlier, memories. We all carry with us an album of them, things we consider important enough to remember. We remembered our veterans in prayer last Sunday in 1918 at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. An agreement known as Armistice was signed, ending the hostilities of World War I, some months before the formal treaty ending the war was signed. By congressional legislation, Armistice Day became a legal holiday nationwide in 1938 and was renamed Veterans Day in 1954. A day to remember and to honor all U.S. veterans. A time to remember. Remembering is important to us, and some things we vow never to forget because they are so important. So last week on Veterans Day, I met on Zoom with a group of people, one of whom was a young servicewoman home from Afghanistan. She showed us 2 treasures that she had carried with her everywhere while she was there on duty. One was a cross. She said it was a constant reminder to her that God loved both her and her adversaries, and that she should remember to pray both for her friends and for her enemies. That's what she said with tears flowing from her eyes. Friends and enemies, sometimes very difficult to do when you're fearful of those who might cause you harm. Remind you of anyone who said from the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The second treasure this woman carried was a photo of her family, whose remembrance she kept close to her heart during her whole tour of duty. Our memories are so important to us. On the 4th of July, we remember with fireworks and speeches and parades and family gatherings the signing of the Declaration of Independence. On All Saints Sunday, 2 weeks ago, for those worshiping with us online, you saw the names and photos of many of our church's fellowship who have preceded us and given life to the ministries and mission projects of the Woodmont United Church of Christ congregation. When the anniversary of 9/11 draws near each year, a familiar song we hear is the one singer Alan Jackson sings. Some of the words that call us to remember thoughtfully and prayerfully are these. Were you there when the world stopped turning on that September day? I'm just a singer of simple songs, not a real political man. But I know Jesus, and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things he gave us, and the greatest is love. That is what Jesus asks us to remember. When at table with his disciples, he breaks bread and shares the cup and says, do this, what? In remembrance of me. Remember me. Among all the things that are important to remember in this life, Jesus, for me, is the most important. When he says to all who follow him, do this in remembrance of me, just what are some of the things he wants us to remember? I have a suggested list that I'd like to share with you. When you truly remember Jesus in your daily life, you will also remember these things as well. First, remember how much you are worth. Second, remember God's love for you and all others, yes, both friends and enemies. And third, remember the cross as a symbol of how much and how far the love of God is willing to go to get through to you. And fourth, remember God's forgiveness and acceptance of you, warts and all, flaws and all, and strive to be of that same gracious spirit toward others. And when it's difficult to be that way, remember to pray often and ask for help to do it. God is right by your side all day, every day, to work with you and teach you how. Remember to pray often. Remember. Prayer literally changes and transforms our days. Your attitude, your emotions, your actions, and the thoughts that occupy your mind. Just as does walking through a day with any true friend you have. And fifth, there is one more most important matter that I believe Jesus wanted us to remember and never to forget. When he broke bread and he poured the cup as symbols representing himself and then gave them to his followers, the bread and cup, the life of Jesus, are not only something to know about and to hold in your hands, but rather Jesus is someone to take into your heart. He asks us to recognize our need and then to take the leap of faith that it can happen and the vision of what may happen after that sheds a whole new light upon our lives and our world, giving light and wisdom, hope and promise where it has been missing before. Jesus, at the heart of things and at the heart of our personal lives, marks the beginning of our mission. As individuals and as a church, we become messengers of God's good news. In a strong sense, Jesus is saying, live life in remembrance of me. Be a church in remembrance of me, and my Spirit will be with you. and work together in remembrance of me. When beloved comedian Bob Hope passed away at age 100 in the year 2003, newspapers nationwide headlined his familiar words on their front pages. Thanks for the memories. Remember it? Those who remember seeing Bob Hope in action will also remember how often he sang, "Thanks for the memories." And I could go on, but I won't. His theme song at the close of his programs on radio and TV and wherever he performed across the nation and the world. At the time of his passing, it was our turn to say thanks for the memories that he had given to so many throughout the 20th century. Memories. What treasures they are. Like an album of moments that each of us is able to keep. We create memories every day, often when we least recognize it. Parents for their children, and grandparents for their grandchildren, husbands and wives for their spouses, and life partners for their partners, and friends to their friends. Jesus asked us to remember him in ways that we would never forget. We build remembering right into our worship, and better still, right into our daily lives. I'm reminded of a beloved hymn where one comes to the wonderful words, "Christ is alive in his people." When that is true, there is no limit to what can be done in his name.